The stars looked peaceful from the bridge of the UDC Valiant. Commander Jake Morrison stood near the viewport, watching Neptune's blue glow in the distance. His ship patrolled the outer edges of human space, watching for threats that most people on Earth didn't believe existed. That was about to change. The alarm broke the silence. Lieutenant Amy Price looked up from her console, her face pale. "Commander, we have an unknown contact. It just appeared out of nowhere. No heat signature, no engine trail. It's just there." Jake moved quickly to her station. The screen showed a massive object 10 times larger than any human ship. Its shape was strange, all curves and sharp angles that hurt to look at. Red lights pulsed along its hull like a heartbeat. Distance? 2 million kilometers and closing. "Sir, it's not using any propulsion we can detect. It's just moving toward us." Amy's hands shook slightly as she worked her controls. Jake activated the ship-wide comm. "Battle stations, this is not a drill. All hands to combat positions." He switched to another channel. "Admiral Ross, we have first contact. Sending you the data now." Back on Earth, Admiral Kevin Ross stared at the images flooding his command center. 40 years he'd served in the military, and he'd never seen anything like this. "Get me Dr. Hayes. Now." Dr. Linda Hayes arrived within minutes, still wearing her lab coat. She was Earth's top expert on theoretical alien communication, though until today it had all been theoretical. She studied the alien ship on the main screen, her mind racing. Try standard mathematical sequences, prime numbers. They should understand that. The Valiant transmitted the sequences. For long minutes there was no response. Then the alien ship sent its own message. The words came through in perfect English, though the voice sounded wrong, like metal scraping on metal. "Primitive creatures of the third planet. You are primitive. Your technology is weak. Your ships are toys. The Zathran Empire claims this system. You will surrender in 72 hours. If you refuse, we will cleanse your world. This is your only warning." The transmission ended. Jake felt anger rise in his chest. "Primitive? We've colonized 4 worlds. We've built ships that can reach the edge of our solar system." Amy pulled up more scans of the alien vessel. "Commander, their technology is beyond ours. Energy readings are off the scale. Their weapons could probably destroy us in seconds." "Probably isn't certainly," Jake said quietly. "Keep scanning. Find me a weakness." On Earth, Senator Paul Grant called an emergency meeting of world leaders. The room filled within hours, faces appearing on screens from every continent. The senator's voice was steady, but everyone could hear the fear beneath. "The message has been authenticated. We have 72 hours to decide humanity's future." Admiral Ross stood before them all. "We've analyzed their ship. Yes, their technology is more advanced. Their weapons use directed energy, some kind of plasma. Their shields are strong. But they sent one ship. One. That tells us something. They don't think we're a threat." "Because we're not," someone said from the Paris connection. "We can't fight this. We should negotiate." "Negotiate?" Admiral Ross's voice hardened. "They didn't offer negotiation. They offered slavery or death. I say we show them what humans do when threatened." The debate raged for hours. Dr. Hayes worked with her team, trying to learn more about the Zathran from their brief transmission. The language was complex, built on concepts that seemed alien to human thinking. But one thing was clear in every word: contempt. The Zathran saw humanity as insects, barely worth noticing. On Mars, Colonel Ryan Bennett received the alert at Olympus Defense Station. He'd spent 10 years building the defenses for humanity's first colony world. The railguns mounted on the station could accelerate projectiles to incredible speeds. They were designed to destroy incoming asteroids, but Bennett had always wondered if they'd work on ships too. Now he might find out. The moon's defense grid powered up under Captain Nicole Hart's command. The bases hidden in craters held weapons that most civilians didn't know existed. Magnetic acceleration cannons, capable of throwing tons of metal at enemy targets. Chemical lasers that could burn through ship hulls. Nicole checked every system twice. If the aliens came, they'd find the moon had teeth. Back on the Valiant, Jake watched the alien ship. It hadn't moved closer, just sat there in space like a monument to its own superiority. Amy worked steadily at her station, compiling data. "Commander, I found something. Their shields pulse. Every 47 seconds there's a tiny fluctuation. Maybe half a second where they're weaker." "How much weaker?" "I don't know. But it's something." Jake smiled grimly. "It's more than they think we have." "Good work, Lieutenant." The 72 hours crawled by. Humanity didn't sleep. Engineers worked on weapons, soldiers drilled, scientists calculated, and in 1,000 churches, temples, and quiet rooms, people prayed. Dr. Hayes made one last attempt at communication. She crafted a message explaining that humanity wanted peace, that they were willing to talk, to find a solution that didn't involve violence. The alien response came quickly. "Your words are meaningless. Your civilization is young and weak. The strong rule the galaxy. The weak serve or die. Choose." Senator Grant stood before the cameras of the world. His voice didn't shake. "People of Earth, of Mars, of Europa, and all human settlements, we have been given a choice between chains and fighting. Our ancestors faced this choice many times in our history. They chose to fight for freedom, so do we. We will not surrender, we will not bow. If they want Earth, they'll have to take it from us." The cheers echoed across the planet. Fear remained, but it was joined by something else: anger, determination. The same stubborn fury that had carried humanity through ice ages and wars, through plagues and disasters. The Zathran had made a mistake. They'd given humanity time to prepare. Worse, they'd made it personal. Admiral Ross gave his orders. Every ship that could fly moved into position. The orbital platforms armed themselves. On Earth's surface, missile silos that hadn't been used in decades came back online. Humanity had spent the last century building tools for peace. Now they'd remember how to make tools for war. Jake received his assignment. The Valiant would be part of the outer defense line along with 15 other ships. Their job was to slow down any attack, give the inner defenses time to prepare. It was dangerous work, probably fatal work. Jake didn't care. His crew didn't care. They'd volunteered to a person. "Commander," Amy said softly, "do you think we can win?" Jake looked at the stars. Somewhere out there, the Zathran Empire spread across dozens of worlds. They had technology humanity couldn't match, weapons humanity didn't understand. By every logical measure, Earth was doomed. "I think we're human, Lieutenant. We don't know how to quit. That has to count for something." The deadline arrived. On Earth, people watched the sky. On Mars, colonists retreated to shelters. On the moon, soldiers gripped their weapons. In the outer system, ships waited in the darkness. The alien vessel began to move. Then its hull split open and more ships emerged. 12 in total, each one a predator built for killing. They formed up and began accelerating toward Earth, their weapons charging. Jake watched them come. His hands were steady on the controls. Around him, his crew worked in focused silence. They were ready. Humanity was ready. The Zathran called them primitive, thought them weak, expected them to break. They were about to learn differently. "All ships," Jake transmitted. "Hold position, wait for my mark. They think they know us. Let's educate them." The alien fleet came closer, weapons glowing bright. They didn't bother with formations or tactics. Why would they? They were hunting primitives. Jake counted down silently. 3, 2, 1. All ships, fire everything. Space lit up with human weapons. Missiles streaked through the void. Railgun rounds moved faster than thought. Lasers painted lines across the darkness. The Zathran had expected resistance. What they got was fury. The battle for Earth had begun, and the Zathran Empire was about to learn that primitive didn't mean helpless. It meant dangerous in ways they'd never imagined. It meant unpredictable. It meant human. The first human missiles reached the Zathran fleet in seconds. The alien ships didn't even try to dodge. Their shields glowed bright as the warheads exploded against them. The plasma dissipated harmlessly. On the bridge of the lead Zathran vessel, Commander Corval watched with satisfaction. Just as expected, primitive chemical explosives against advanced energy shields. Pointless. Return fire, Corval ordered. Destroy the closest vessels. Make it quick. Purple beams lanced out from the alien ships. The first struck a human destroyer, the UDC Guardian. The beam punched through the ship's shield like paper, vaporized half the hull, and the Guardian exploded in a ball of fire. 18 seconds of combat and 37 humans were dead. On the Valiant, Jake watched the Guardian die. His jaw clenched. Pattern Delta, all ships, evasive maneuvers. Don't let them get a clean shot. The human ships scattered, moving in random patterns. The Zathran fired again, but this time the beams missed, passing through empty space. Corval frowned. The humans were faster than he'd expected, no matter. Speed wouldn't save them, but Jake wasn't trying to run. He was buying time. Amy, are the special packages ready? Lieutenant Amy Price checked her screen. Loaded and waiting, Commander. Fire them. All of them. The Valiant launched 12 missiles. These looked like the others on the outside, but inside they were different. No explosives. Just solid cores of tungsten wrapped around magnetic accelerators. They were stupid, simple, and older than spaceflight itself. Kinetic kill vehicles, chunks of metal moving very, very fast. The Zathran sensors detected them and dismissed them. More chemical rockets, more primitive explosives. Not worth worrying about. The shields would handle them. Corval didn't even issue orders to shoot them down. The first missile hit a Zathran cruiser at 90,000 kilometers per hour. The shield tried to stop it. Energy shields were perfect for dispersing heat and radiation. They were less perfect against solid matter moving at relativistic speeds. The tungsten core punched through, taking most of its energy with it. It hit the hull and kept going, tearing through armor, through decks, through the ship's reactor core. The cruiser exploded from the inside out. Corval stared at his screens in shock. That wasn't possible. Simple kinetic weapons couldn't penetrate Zathran shields, except one just had. Then another missile hit another ship. And another. In 10 seconds, 3 Zathran vessels were gone. Evasive action, Corval screamed. Destroy those missiles. But the other human ships were already firing their own kinetic rounds. The Zathran fleet broke formation trying to dodge. Their advanced computers calculated trajectories, but the humans kept changing them. Small thrusters on each missile adjusted their path, making them unpredictable. On Mars, Colonel Ryan Bennett watched the battle through his scanners. The outer defense was holding, but barely. Time for Olympus Station to join the fight. Power up the main railguns. Calculate firing solutions for the enemy capital ships. Chief Engineer Sophie Blake ran her hands over the controls. She designed these weapons herself, spent years perfecting them. Now she'd see if they worked. Railguns charged, Colonel. We have a clear shot. Fire. The magnetic coils activated, accelerating a 2-ton slug of metal to incredible speed. The projectile left the barrel moving faster than any human ship could fly. It crossed the distance to the Zathran fleet in seconds. The slug hit a battle cruiser dead center, and the ship simply came apart, torn into pieces by the impact. Corval couldn't believe what he was seeing. His fleet was dying. Half his ships were gone or crippled. The humans were using weapons that should be useless, but somehow they were winning. He wanted to retreat. But the Empire didn't tolerate failure. He had to succeed or die trying. All ships focus fire on the human orbital stations. Destroy their infrastructure. The remaining Zathran vessels turned toward Earth's orbital space. Plasma beams reached out, striking space stations and satellites. The humans had evacuated most of them, but not all. The station designated Europa Watch exploded, killing 43 scientists who'd chosen to stay at their posts. Captain Nicole Hart saw the attack from her position on the moon. The lunar base was Earth's last line of defense. If the enemy got past everything else, she and her people would be all that stood between the aliens and home. But Nicole didn't plan to wait. Target the lead ships. Fire the magnetic accelerators. Hidden doors opened in crater walls. The cannons inside had been disguised as mining equipment. Now they revealed their true purpose. They grabbed asteroids that had been positioned nearby and threw them at the enemy. Not with rockets or engines, with pure magnetic force. The first asteroid, massing several thousand tons, slammed into a Zathran destroyer. The ship's shield stopped it, but barely. The second asteroid hit the same shield. And the third, the shield failed on the fourth impact. And the fifth asteroid crushed the destroyer like a tin can. Lieutenant Danny Ford led his squadron of fighters toward the battle. The small craft weren't much, just retrofitted mining shuttles with missile racks welded on, but they were fast and hard to hit. All wings, attack pattern Romeo. Swarm them. 20 fighters dove into the enemy formation. The Zathran tried to target them, but the small ships dodged and weaved. Danny's computer locked onto a damaged cruiser. Fox 3, missiles away. His missiles, like all human weapons in this fight, were simple. Solid fuel, basic guidance, conventional explosives. The Zathran should have been able to stop them easily. But the cruiser's shields were already weak, its point defense guns damaged. The missiles got through, striking the engine section. The cruiser lost power and began to drift. Korval realized the truth with growing horror. The humans hadn't won because they were advanced. They'd won because they were primitive. Zathran shields were designed to stop energy weapons and high-tech missiles with electronic signatures. These crude kinetic weapons, these dumb rockets, they slipped through defenses meant for a more sophisticated enemy. Worse, the humans fought without honor or formation. They swarmed like insects, struck from unexpected angles, used tactics no civilized species would employ. They hid weapons in asteroids, disguised warships as cargo vessels, and seemed perfectly willing to sacrifice their own lives to take down Zathran ships. Retreat, Korval ordered. His pride screamed against it, but survival mattered more. All ships withdraw to jump point. We'll regroup and return with reinforcements. The surviving Zathran vessels turned and fled. The humans didn't chase them. They couldn't. Half the defense fleet was damaged or destroyed. But they'd won. Against all odds, against superior technology, they'd driven off the attackers. Jake sat in his command chair, exhausted. Around him, his crew cheered. They'd survived. The Valiant had taken damage, but she was still flying. Casualty report, he said quietly. Amy's voice was somber. Fleet-wide, we lost 4 ships completely. 3 more are too damaged to fight. Casualties are still being counted, but it's over 200 dead, 500 wounded. 200 people who'd woken up this morning thinking they'd see tomorrow. 200 families who'd lost someone. The price of victory. Jake closed his eyes briefly, then opened them. Send a message to Admiral Ross. The outer defense line holds. Enemy fleet has retreated. On Earth, people watched the news in stunned silence. They'd prepared for the worst. Many had expected to die. Instead, they'd won. The celebration started small, then grew. In the streets of New York, London, Tokyo, and Mumbai, crowds gathered. They cried and laughed and held each other, but Admiral Ross didn't celebrate. He studied the battle reports with Dr. Hayes and Senator Grant. The humans had won through surprise and tactics. Next time, the enemy would be ready. They'll be back, he said, and they'll bring more ships. How long do we have? Senator Grant asked. Weeks. Maybe a month if we're lucky. Their faster-than-light drive is better than ours. They can bring reinforcements from across their empire. Dr. Hayes looked at the Zathran ship designs they'd captured in scans. We need to learn everything we can from this battle. Figure out their weaknesses, improve our weapons. Sophie Blake was already working on that. The railguns had worked perfectly, but they took too long to recharge. She needed to make them faster. The kinetic missiles were effective, but humanity didn't have enough of them. They needed thousands more, and they needed them quickly. Across human space, factories retooled. Mining operations diverted resources. Scientists worked around the clock. Soldiers trained harder. Everyone understood the truth. This was just the first battle. The real war was coming. On his command ship, limping back toward Zathran space, Korval prepared his report for the Empire. He'd lost more than half his fleet to primitives. The shame burned, but he'd learned valuable lessons. The humans were dangerous. They needed to be destroyed completely, not just conquered. He would recommend a full battle fleet. 80 ships. Enough to overwhelm any defense. The Zathran Empire would not make the same mistake twice. But neither would humanity. Both sides were preparing. Both sides were learning. And when they met again, the battle would make the first fight look like a small skirmish. The real test was yet to come. 3 weeks passed. 3 weeks of frantic preparation. Earth's factories worked day and night, producing weapons at a pace that would have seemed impossible before. But fear was a powerful motivator, and humanity was very afraid. Dr. Marcus Webb stood in a laboratory deep beneath what used to be called Area 51. The facility had a new name now, but everyone still called it by the old one. On the table in front of him sat something that made his hands shake. A nuclear warhead, old technology. Obsolete technology according to most military experts. Space warfare had moved beyond such crude weapons. Marcus disagreed. The energy release from a nuclear explosion is chaotic, he explained to the video conference of military leaders. It's not coherent like a laser or focused like a plasma beam. It's just raw force in every direction. Heat, radiation, electromagnetic pulse, and kinetic shockwave all at once. Admiral Ross leaned forward on his screen. And you think the Zathran shields can't handle it? Their shields are designed for directed energy weapons. They're optimized to deflect or absorb coherent beams. But a nuclear blast? That's millions of degrees of heat plus hard radiation plus electromagnetic chaos. I think it'll overload their shield generators, you think? There's only one way to know for sure, Admiral. Ross nodded slowly. How many nuclear weapons do we have? 8,412 warheads in various sizes. Most haven't been maintained in decades, but we're working on that. We can have 5,000 ready in 2 weeks. Do it. Fit them to every missile we have. If the Zathran want a primitive response, we'll give them one they'll never forget. On Mars, Major Helen Cross trained her soldiers for something everyone hoped wouldn't happen. Ground combat. If the Zathran broke through the space defenses, they might try to land troops. Helen didn't know what alien soldiers looked like or how they fought, but she knew how to prepare. They'll have better weapons than us, she told her troops. Better armor. Better everything, so we don't fight fair. We use the terrain. We set traps. We hit and run. We make them pay for every meter of ground. Private Danny Chen raised his hand. Ma'am, why would they even bother landing troops? Why not just bomb us from orbit? Helen smiled grimly. Because they don't just want to kill us. They want to conquer us. You can't rule rubble and corpses. They'll want infrastructure intact. That's our advantage. They have to be careful. We don't. Meanwhile, engineer Tony Kim worked on a project that seemed crazy even by current standards. He was a mining specialist, used to working with explosives in asteroid fields. Now he was applying that knowledge to warfare. Space mines, he explained to Captain Greg Stone. We disguise them as orbital debris. The Zathran sensors see them as junk and ignore them, but when their ships get close, boom. Greg looked at the designs. His background was submarines, not spacecraft, but the concepts were similar. Silent running, stealth attacks, using the environment as a weapon. How powerful. Each one has a fusion charge. Small, but enough to crack a ship's hull if it goes off close enough. I can make hundreds of them. Make thousands, Greg said. We'll seed them throughout Earth's orbit. Make the Zathran fly through a minefield. The Zathran Empire was also preparing. Supreme Commander Vexthar assembled the largest fleet ever sent against a primitive world. 80 warships, including 6 Worldbreaker-class vessels designed to crack planets from orbit. He studied the reports from the first battle again and again, trying to understand what had gone wrong. They used kinetic weapons, his science officer explained. Simple mass moving at high velocity. Our shields are less effective against such attacks. Then upgrade the shields. That will take months, Commander. Vexithar slammed his fist down. We don't have months. The Council is watching. If we fail again, they'll replace us. We go with what we have, but we won't make the same mistakes. We stay at long range. We bombard them with plasma fire until their defenses collapse. We don't get close enough for their primitive weapons to reach us. It was a good plan. Logical, it should have worked. But Vexthar didn't understand humans yet. He still thought of them as primitives who would break under sustained attack. He didn't realize that humans got more dangerous when pushed into a corner. The Zathran fleet arrived 4 weeks after the first battle. 80 ships dropped out of faster-than-light travel at the edge of Earth's solar system. Their sensors immediately detected the human defenses. More ships than before positioned throughout the orbital space. Energy signatures everywhere. Vexthar studied the displays. They've been busy, no matter. We have overwhelming force. All ships advance at attack speed. Stay in formation. Prepare to fire at maximum range. The fleet moved forward like a wall of death. They kept their distance just as planned. At 5 million kilometers from Earth, they opened fire. Plasma beams reached across space, targeting human ships and stations. The beams had more range than kinetic weapons. The Zathran could kill from safety. Admiral Ross, now commanding the defense from a reinforced bunker on Earth, watched the bombardment begin. 12 human ships exploded in the first minute. Orbital platforms died next. It looked like a massacre. It was supposed to look that way. "Execute Plan Prometheus," he ordered. Suddenly, thousands of small objects that had been floating dormant in orbit came to life. Tony Kim's minds activated their engines and began accelerating toward the Zathran fleet. They moved slowly at first, still disguised as debris. The Zathran sensors saw them but didn't recognize the threat until it was too late. The first mine detonated against a cruiser's hull. The fusion charge wasn't huge, but it was enough. The hull breached and the ship lost pressure. More mines arrived, exploding in chains of fire across the Zathran formation. Vexthar cursed. "Point defense, destroy those objects. All ships, evasive maneuvers!" But the mines were everywhere, and there were too many of them. The Zathran ships broke formation trying to dodge. That's when the human counterattack began. Every missile platform, every railgun, every weapon humanity had built fired at once. The sky filled with projectiles, and at the front of the wave came the nuclear missiles. Dr. Webb watched from his bunker, his heart pounding. This was the moment. Either his theory was right or thousands of people were about to die for nothing. The first nuclear warhead reached the Zathran fleet and detonated. The explosion was beautiful and terrible. A sphere of white fire expanded at the speed of light. Radiation sleeted across space. The electromagnetic pulse washed over Zathran shields like a tsunami. The lead battle cruiser's shields flickered, overloaded, and failed. The ship itself survived the blast, but it was exposed now. The second nuke hit the same ship. Without shields, the warship simply vaporized. "It works," Marcus whispered. Then louder, "It works!" More nuclear weapons reached the fleet. The Zathran shields, so effective against energy beams, crumpled under the chaotic onslaught. Ship after ship lost protection. The kinetic weapons that followed found easy targets. Metal slugs punched through armor. Railgun rounds tore ships apart. The perfect Zathran formation became a scattered mess of dying vessels. Captain Stone commanded his ship, the redesigned submarine now called the Phantom, through the chaos. His vessel was small and equipped with every stealth technology humanity had developed. The Zathran couldn't see him coming. He slipped through their formation until he was directly beneath their flagship, the Eternal Dominion. "Range to target?" Greg asked quietly. 500 meters, Captain," his weapons officer replied. "Fire the torpedo." The Phantom carried one weapon, a single missile with a 100-megaton warhead. At point-blank range, it couldn't miss. The torpedo struck the Eternal Dominion's engine section and detonated. The flagship, pride of the Zathran fleet, broke in half. The reactor core went critical seconds later, and the resulting explosion took 3 nearby ships with it. Supreme Commander Vexthar died without understanding what had killed him. His last thought was confusion at how primitives could do this. The Zathran fleet collapsed. Without their commander, without formation, under constant nuclear bombardment and kinetic attack. They panicked. Some ships tried to fight. Others tried to flee. The humans destroyed both kinds. By the time the battle ended 2 hours later, 53 Zathran ships were destroyed or crippled. Only 27 escaped. On Earth, people watched in disbelief. They'd won again. Against impossible odds with inferior technology, they'd beaten the Zathran Empire's main battle fleet. The celebrations this time were different. Less relief, more defiance. Humanity was learning that they could fight, that they could win, but Admiral Ross didn't celebrate. Neither did Dr. Webb or Tony Kim or any of the military leadership. They'd won the battle, but they all knew what came next. The Zathran Empire wouldn't stop. They couldn't stop. They'd committed too much, lost too many ships. Pride alone would drive them to keep attacking. And humanity couldn't keep defending forever. Each battle cost resources, cost lives, cost time. Eventually, the Zathran numbers would overwhelm them. Earth had won 2 battles, but they couldn't win a war of attrition against an empire that controlled 47 star systems. The answer came from an unexpected source. Captain Lisa Park, an intelligence officer who'd been studying the Zathran communications they'd intercepted. She walked into Admiral Ross's office with a tablet and a grim expression. 6 months had passed since the second battle. 6 months of humanity working harder than ever before in its history. Engineers had taken apart captured Zathran technology piece by piece, learning how it worked, copying what they could, and improving what they couldn't. Commander Pete Shaw stood on the bridge of the Retribution, humanity's first deep space strike vessel. The ship was a hybrid of human and alien technology, human weapons and armor, but Zathran faster-than-light engines and enhanced power systems. 15 more ships just like it waited in formation around him. All vessels report ready, Commander, his communications officer said. Pete looked at the star chart. Their target was the Tau Ceti system, 12 light-years from Earth. Intelligence said the Zathran maintained a major shipyard there. It produced a quarter of their military vessels. Destroying it would hurt the Empire badly. More importantly, it would send a message. Take us to FTL, Pete ordered. Next stop, Tau Ceti. The stars stretched into lines as the human fleet jumped to faster than light speed. Inside the ship, soldiers checked their weapons and tried not to think too hard about what they were doing. They were going to attack the Zathran Empire on their own territory. It was insane. It was desperate. It was necessary. Dr. Elena Ruiz sat in the science section of the Retribution, reviewing her research one more time. She was a biologist, not a soldier, but her discovery might be as important as any weapon. During the last battle, humans had captured several Zathran bodies. Dead ones, unfortunately, but enough for study. Their immune systems are incredibly efficient, she'd reported to Admiral Ross. They've evolved to fight off diseases from dozens of different worlds, but that efficiency comes with a cost. Their systems are specialized. They're optimized for known threats. And Earth has unknown threats, Ross had said, understanding immediately. Exactly. Earth bacteria, Earth viruses. Things that evolved separately from anything in the Zathran Empire. Their immune systems don't recognize them. A common cold virus could put them in bed for weeks. Now Elena had aerosol dispensers filled with specially selected Earth microbes. Not deadly ones. That would be too much even in war. But incapacitating ones. Flu viruses, stomach bacteria, organisms that would make the Zathran very sick without killing them. Biological warfare, but with a conscience. The fleet dropped out of FTL at the edge of the Tau Ceti system. Immediately alarms blared. Commander, we have multiple contacts, the sensor officer reported. 37 Zathran vessels in system. 18 are military, the rest appear to be cargo or construction ships. Pete studied the tactical display. The shipyard was in orbit around Tau Ceti's fourth planet, a gas giant. The military ships were scattered, not expecting an attack.
Why would they?
No one attacked the Zathran Empire on their own territory. Until now, all ships attack Formation Delta, target the military vessels first. We go in fast and hit hard. The human fleet accelerated toward the planet. The Zathran were slow to respond. By the time they realized what was happening, the human ships were already in weapons range. Nuclear missiles launched first, each one targeted at a different enemy ship. The Zathran had upgraded their shields since the last battle, but not enough. The nukes still overloaded them. Following the missiles came railgun rounds and kinetic weapons. The Zathran military ships scrambled to defend, but they were caught off guard. 3 destroyers exploded before they could return fire. 2 more were crippled. The remaining 13 finally got organized and began shooting back. Purple plasma beams reached out for the human vessels. The Retribution's shields took a direct hit and held barely. Pete felt the ship shake from the impact. Return fire. All weapons, the battle became chaos. Ships on both sides died in flowers of fire. But the humans had surprise on their side, and they'd studied the Zathran tactics. They knew when the aliens would dodge, when they'd shoot, how they'd respond. The Zathran were fighting by the book. Humans had thrown away the book. After 15 minutes of brutal combat, the Zathran military presence was destroyed. 13 more ships gone, added to the hundreds they'd already lost. The cargo vessels and construction platforms tried to run. Pete let them go. They weren't the target. Take us to the shipyard, he ordered. Prepare boarding teams. The shipyard was enormous, a structure of metal and energy that stretched for miles. It could build 6 ships simultaneously. Right now, 4 were under construction. Massive vessels that would have been death to Earth's defenders. Pete wouldn't let them be completed. Commander, we're receiving a transmission from the station, communications reported. They're asking us to spare them. They say they're just workers, not soldiers. Pete felt a cold weight in his stomach. Workers, civilians, people just doing their jobs. War made monsters of everyone. Tell them they have 10 minutes to evacuate. After that, we destroy the station. The evacuation began immediately. Escape pods and small craft fled the shipyard. True to his word, Pete let them all go. He wasn't here to murder workers. He was here to end the Empire's ability to make war. When the 10 minutes were up, the Retribution opened fire. Missiles struck the shipyard's power core. The structure began to break apart, pieces of it tumbling into the gas giant's atmosphere below. The 4 unfinished ships would never threaten Earth now, but Pete wasn't done. He had one more objective. Broadcast on all frequencies, he ordered. Maximum power. I want every system in 50 light-years to hear this. The message went out, spoken in both human and Zathran languages. Captain Lisa Park had helped write it, choosing each word carefully. This is Commander Pete Shaw of the Earth Defense Force. Today we destroyed the Tau Ceti shipyard. We did not come here for conquest. We came because the Zathran Empire attacked our world without provocation. They called us primitive. They demanded our surrender. We refused. Now we stand in their space victorious. Let this be known throughout the galaxy. The Zathran Empire can be defeated. Any species under their rule know that resistance is possible. You are not alone. Humanity stands with all free peoples against tyranny. The message repeated on loop as the human fleet prepared to leave. But before they could jump to FTL, something unexpected happened. 3 ships approached from the inner system. Not Zathran ships, something else. They broadcast their own message. Human vessels, this is the Korvax Independence Fleet. We received your transmission. We are one of the species enslaved by the Zathran. Your actions today have inspired us. We wish to join your fight. Pete stared at the communication. He hadn't expected this. The plan was to inspire rebellion, but he thought it would take time. Instead, it was happening right now. This is Commander Shaw. You're welcome to join us, but understand the risks. The Zathran will hunt you for this. They already hunt us, the Korvax captain replied. At least now we hunt them back. The fleet returned to Earth with their new allies. Admiral Ross listened to their report with growing excitement. The plan was working better than hoped. Within days, 2 more species declared independence from the Zathran Empire. The Empire responded with force, sending fleets to crush the rebellions. But that meant ships pulled away from the front lines. Ships that couldn't attack Earth. Captain Lisa Park worked around the clock translating intercepted Zathran communications. The Empire was fracturing. Decades of oppression were catching up with them. Some of their subject species saw humanity's victory and thought, if primitives can resist, so can we. But the Zathran weren't broken yet. They pulled their forces back, abandoning their most distant holdings. They fortified their core systems and prepared for a final assault on Earth. If they could crush humanity completely, they believed the rebellions would collapse. Fear would win again. The Zathran assembled one more fleet. Not as large as before, but more experienced. These were their best ships, crewed by veterans who'd fought dozens of battles. The new commander was Talvek, considered the finest military mind in the Empire. Unlike his predecessors, he didn't underestimate humanity. Talvek studied everything he could about the humans. He watched recordings of their battles. He analyzed their tactics. He understood now that they were dangerous precisely because they were unpredictable. They didn't fight like any civilized species. They broke rules he didn't even know existed. We cannot fight them the way we fought others, he told his officers. They adapt too quickly. Every tactic we use, they find a counter for. We must be willing to adapt as well. The Zathran fleet moved toward Earth, but carefully. They used scouts. They watched for ambushes. They treated the humans as equals, not primitives. It was a sign of respect, though born from fear. On Earth, Admiral Ross prepared for what everyone knew would be the final battle. The Zathran were coming with everything they had left. Either humanity would win and break the Empire forever, or they'd lose and Earth would fall. There was no middle ground anymore. How long until they arrive? He asked. 3 weeks, sir, Captain Park replied. Maybe less. Ross nodded. 3 weeks to prepare for the fight that would decide humanity's future. But this time, they wouldn't fight alone. The Korvax were coming and 2 other liberated species. Small fleets, but every ship mattered. Dr. Elena Ruiz had developed new biological weapons, more effective than the first versions. Engineer Tony Kim had designed improved mines. Dr. Marcus Webb had bigger nuclear weapons. The final Zathran fleet arrived at Earth 3 weeks later. 40 warships, veterans all, commanded by Talvek. But they didn't arrive alone. Humanity had allies now. The Korvax brought 12 ships. The Mirian Union sent 8. The Kelvar Collective contributed 5. Not huge numbers, but enough to matter. Enough to show that this wasn't just Earth against the Zathran anymore. It was freedom against tyranny. Admiral Jake Morrison stood on the bridge of humanity's new flagship, the Defiance. Around him, officers worked their stations with quiet efficiency. They'd done this before. They knew what was coming. "Open a channel to the enemy fleet," he ordered. The screen flickered to life, showing Talvek. The Zathran commander looked different from his predecessors. Less arrogant. More tired. He'd seen too many good soldiers die in this war. "Admiral Morrison," Talvek said. "I come to offer terms." That surprised Jake. "Terms? Your empire attacked us twice. What terms could you possibly offer?" "Surrender," Talvek said simply. "But not yours, mine." The bridge went silent. Jake leaned forward. "Explain." "I've studied your people, Admiral. You fight differently than any species I've encountered. You're unpredictable, resourceful, and you refuse to accept defeat. My empire has lost over 200 ships trying to conquer one primitive world. Meanwhile, your actions inspired rebellions across our territory. We're fighting on 6 fronts now. The empire is collapsing. Then why are you here?" "Because the Council ordered me to destroy Earth or die trying. But I've realized something. The Council is wrong. You're not the threat to our empire, we are. Our arrogance, our refusal to treat other species as equals, our addiction to conquest. These things are killing us more surely than your weapons ever could." Talvek paused, then continued. "I'm offering the surrender of my fleet. Not to Earth specifically, but to the cause of freedom. Let us end this war, not with more death, but with a new beginning." Jake looked at his crew. He saw hope on their faces, but also suspicion. It could be a trick. But something in Talvek's voice rang true. "What about the rest of your empire? The Council? They're already gone. 2 days ago, the Korvax and Mirian forces attacked our capital world. The Council fled. The Empire is fracturing into independent systems. Some will continue fighting. Others will seek peace. I choose peace." President Julia Ward joined the conversation from Earth. She'd been listening the whole time. "Commander Talvek, if you're sincere, prove it. Share your military codes with us. Give us access to your command network." "I will do so immediately," Talvek said. "And more. I will help you find and stop the remaining hardliners who want to continue this war." Over the next hours, Talvek kept his word. His fleet transmitted their codes and surrendered their weapons. Intelligence data flooded in, showing the locations of every remaining Zathran military installation. Captain Lisa Park worked with Talvek's staff to coordinate with resistance movements across former Empire space. But not every Zathran accepted the surrender. 3 of Talvek's ships refused to stand down. Their captains called him a traitor and attacked. The brief battle ended quickly. The human allied fleet destroyed 2 ships. The third tried to flee but was captured by Korvax forces. Ambassador Claire Young arrived on the Defiance 2 days later. She was Earth's first official diplomat to alien species, and she had a massive job ahead of her. Dozens of species were emerging from Zathran rule, confused and scared. They needed guidance, needed help rebuilding, needed to know what came next. "We're organizing a summit," Claire explained to the assembled leaders. Humans, Korvax, Mirians, Kelvars, and reformed Zathran, all gathered in the Defiance's conference room. "Every free species will be invited. We'll establish a new organization, the Free Worlds Coalition, equal membership for all. No empire, no subjects, just partners." A Korvax delegate spoke up. "And who will lead this coalition? Humanity? You defeated the Zathran, so you claimed their place?" Jake answered. "No one leads. That's the point. We make decisions together. Every species gets a vote. We protect each other, trade with each other, and respect each other's sovereignty." "A naive dream," said a Mirian officer. "Someone always seeks power." "Then we stop them," Claire said firmly. "Together. That's what makes us different from the Empire. We're not strong because one species rules. We're strong because we choose to stand together." The debates continued for weeks. Meanwhile, fighting still raged in some sectors. Hardline Zathran commanders refused to surrender. But without central coordination or supply lines, they were being defeated one by one. Admiral Morrison led joint human-alien task forces to liberate occupied worlds and destroy the last resistance. Dr. Elena Ruiz found new purpose in her work. Instead of weapons, she now focused on medicine. Many species had suffered under Zathran rule. She worked to develop cures for diseases the Empire had used as tools of control. Her labs became centers for cross-species cooperation, where scientists from a dozen worlds shared knowledge. Engineer Tony Kim helped rebuild infrastructure on liberated worlds. The Zathran had strip-mined many planets, leaving them ecological disasters. Tony designed new technologies combining human engineering with alien science. Terraforming projects began on 6 worlds. 6 months after Talvek's surrender, the first galactic summit convened on Earth. Representatives from 23 species arrived. The sight of so many different aliens walking through New York City would have been impossible to imagine a year ago. Now it was reality. President Ward opened the summit. We come from different worlds, different histories, different beliefs. But we share one thing. We all value freedom. The Zathran Empire tried to take that from us. They called us primitive, weak, unworthy. They were wrong. Not because we're strong individually, but because together we're unstoppable. The summit lasted 3 months. They established the charter for the Free Worlds Coalition. They set up trade agreements and mutual defense pacts. They created courts to handle disputes between species. They built the framework for a new galactic order. Not everyone joined immediately. Some species preferred isolation. Others were suspicious of humanity's motives. But slowly more worlds signed the charter. Within 2 years, the coalition included 40 species across 70 systems. The Zathran themselves split into 3 factions. The largest group, led by Talvek, accepted responsibility for the Empire's crimes and joined the coalition as equal members. They shared technology and helped rebuild worlds their ancestors had destroyed. A smaller group retreated to their home system, rejecting contact with other species. The smallest group, the Hardliners, fled to the Galactic Rim and were never heard from again. Admiral Jake Morrison retired from military service 3 years after the war ended. He'd seen enough fighting for one lifetime. At his farewell ceremony, President Ward awarded him humanity's highest honor. "You saved our world," she said. "Not just once, but many times." Jake shook his head. "I did what anyone would do." "We all did. That's the secret the Zathran never understood. Humans don't fight because we're strong. We fight because we don't know how to quit." Dr. Marcus Webb continued his research, but now for peaceful purposes. The nuclear weapons that had saved Earth were dismantled. Instead, he designed fusion reactors to power rebuilding efforts across the coalition. His clean energy systems helped terraform dead worlds into new homes. Commander Pete Shaw led trade expeditions into uncharted space. Humanity's hybrid ships, combining the best of multiple technologies, explored systems no one had visited before. They found 3 new intelligent species and helped them develop peacefully, learning from past mistakes. But the galaxy wasn't perfect. There were still threats. Pirates attacked shipping lanes. Some isolated species were hostile, and rumors reached the coalition of another empire far beyond Zathran space, watching and waiting. The Free Worlds maintained a military for protection. But it was defensive, focused on security rather than conquest. 5 years after the war, Captain Lisa Park presented her research on the conflict. She'd compiled everything, every battle, every decision, every cost. The numbers were staggering. Humanity had lost 30,000 people in the war. Millions more across the galaxy had died during the rebellions. Over 400 Zathran ships had been destroyed. Countless planets had been damaged. Was it worth it? Someone asked during her presentation. Lisa looked at the data for a long moment. War is never worth it. But freedom? That's worth any cost. We didn't start this fight. We didn't want it. But when it came, we stood up. And in standing up, we inspired others to do the same. That changed the galaxy forever. A new alien probe entered Coalition space 10 years after the war ended. Its signals were cautious, respectful. "This is the Terran Confederation," the automated message said. "We seek peaceful contact and friendship." Ambassador Claire Young smiled as she prepared the response. She'd been doing this job for years now, and she loved it. "This is Ambassador Claire Young of the Free Worlds Coalition. On behalf of 23 species, we welcome you with open arms. Come, let us talk. Let us trade. Let us learn from each other. The galaxy is better when we stand together." Jake Morrison watched the news from his home on Mars. He was older now, his hair gray, his hands steady. He lived quietly, teaching at the Defense Academy. Young cadets from multiple species came to learn.